So on this week's episode of Be More Super, the podcast, we are joined by the writer and director of Roswell Delirium, which I've seen, and it's definitely 5 stars out of 5. It's an amazing movie. It's a wonderful director and writer, Richard Bakewell. Richard, welcome to the show, sir.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, do you know what? I'm really, really excited because, it's great to have the cast on the shows, but directing and writing has always fascinated me because there's so much work, and I think it's quite nice to showcase the amount of effort and work that goes into these films for the viewers, because all they really see is the cast doing a stellar job, delivering great performances, and there's you, bless you, behind the camera, pulling your hair out, making sure that we get what we see on screen. So before we, delve into the Roswell Delirium, I wanted to ask what got you into this industry? Because looking at your IMDb, you've been so busy, and you've worked on some amazing shows, from Dr. Phil to Cops to you name it. You have done so much stuff. So why this industry, and why not, I don't know, a normal 9-to-5 job?
Well, when I was a kid, my dad took me to see Star Wars. And it was like that moment, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I thought they were like real people, like on the screen, and you could touch them, but they weren't, obviously. And it was like that movie started it, and then like Grease and Saturday Night Fever, E.T., Empire Strikes Back. I mean, Back to the Future. It's like, I knew before I was 10 that I wanted to make movies. Like, I knew that was what I wanted to do. And people thought I was weird. But then, when I got through film school, it's like everybody was the same. We're all kind of weirdos together who, were, talented and gifted and had a desire. So it wasn't so out of the ordinary. But back home in a small town, it is out of the ordinary. So it's always been one.
I heard as well that obviously you made some home movies and everything like that when you was younger. Do you think there's a chance of them resurfacing in the future? I mean, have you got them, and do you watch them every now and again?
They are all on VHS. When I was in college, we would make movie ripoffs. So I would have a movie and call it Dorm Hard instead of Die Hard, or it'd be like us in the dorm hanging out and just doing stupid things, and edit the whole thing, put music to it. I have all these videos from college, high school, when I was a child. I mean, just little things I put together. So yeah, they're there in the vault, just so I can make sure no one gets get those and blackmails me with some of that stuff. The embarrassing footage.
You know what? All great directors have got them. Steven Spielberg, George Lucas. And now you. I mean, was there a moment of obviously your career up to now that actually propelled you? That was your driving force to get to where you are now?
Well, I always wanted to do it, and I went to film school, kind of ran out of money, and then I started trading stocks. I got licensed to trade stocks at Goldman Sachs. So I made a lot of money doing that for a few years. And then 9/11 happened, and they let go of a lot of people, and I got a severance package. So I was like, I'm going to go back to film school and finish up. I never finished. I want to do it. This is the second chance of life. I can do what I really wanted to do. And I did 3 internships, and I just really applied myself. I'm like, this is what I want. I don't care. I'm not making money, but I want to do this. And then this company hired me on from internship, and then brought me to LA for 4 months, and then it became 19 years. So here I am.
Yeah. 19 years, and here you are. I mean, what qualities do you think, what qualities and skills are essential to be a really good director? Because we hear so many horror stories, and again, you shouldn't hear everything that you hear in the press, about Bryan Singer and directors like that. I mean, what makes for a good director?
Well, everybody has their style, and for me, just to go back to even casting, I go to all the casting. I feel like it's so important to be there in the room, to just hear the cast do the scene, give them adjustments. And a lot of times I'll pretend that I'm just the PA, the person who doesn't even matter, to see how they handle me. I'll go get them, and bring them into the room just to see how they act with me, because that says a lot about how they're going to be on set, And I feel like, when I'm on set, I really try to make jokes with the cast when it's appropriate, like when it's not a serious day, because I feel like if you bond with them, they will work so hard for you. Like they will do anything for you. And, like there was like people, like I remember Sam Jones, who, we were going to do a rehearsal, and then he's like, "You didn't say action." I'm like, I'll never say action. I say whenever you're ready. That gives you time to just take a moment to gather yourself and then start the process. Because if I say action, you're just ready to go, 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 and that's not how it
Mm.
works. You need to just have that 5-10 seconds. And that was something like Ashton, who was in the movie, asked of me all the time, even in the table read and the casting. She always asked for 10 seconds. I'm like, you can take as long as you need, because she has some pretty hard scenes to deliver. So, but we would slate, and then she would like be out of the room, and she'd come sit down in the chair and just go 10 seconds. I'm like,
Mm.
go ahead.
I
And
mean,
it's,
would you say as well the key is getting to know your cast, because every actor is completely different, and you have some really grounded ones, and you can have some really diva-ish ones. So, being a director, I suppose you're managing egos as well as talent. I mean, is that difficult to do?
it is. There are so many things to juggle when you're making a movie. So then you have to deal with this ego and personalities and conflict and drama. And, like the great ones, there's not a lot of conflict. It's like you sometimes have to massage them a little bit because they feel like they're not doing the right thing. And I'm like, no, you're on the right path. Trust me. Like sometimes they doubt themselves. There's a couple actors who, like, after we shot, they called me or were like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry I didn't deliver for you." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's amazing. You had, the production designer crying, watching the take. I'm like, you were great. Like, don't doubt yourself." But it's hard to juggle all the personalities because, like, Michael and Dee have like 50 years of experience. Then you have all these, child actors like Kylie and Caden and Georgia and Roman, who are just as talented, but without that like history of experience.
Mm.
And it's always just working with them. And then it's like, if doing the big scenes with all the people, you sometimes have to like work the room because everybody feels like, why isn't he giving me notes? So you really just have to like, it's a dance. You have to like really be delicate with them because they're very vulnerable, like they're putting themselves out there and being very emotional. It's hard. It is a hard process, and it's not for everybody. That's why I think a lot of times directors and the cast don't work together very well. And for me, when I'm directing, I am never like at Video Village. I am right next to the DP, and I'm watching the onboard camera because I don't want to have to wait a minute to walk from Video Village and like tell them something. I want to be right there and just get it in the moment. Like that's not wait 2 minutes for me to walk back to you, and that's just time wasted. So that's just like it's
Um,
part of my process.
I mean, is there a director of when you were like starting out that you really looked up to, that you thought, do you know what, one day I'd love to be like him or her?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the three for me were like Clint Eastwood, Martin Scorsese, and then Spielberg. Obviously, I mean, I just I watched all their stuff, good or bad. But like Spielberg did things that no one ever did, like with the camera, the way it moves and tells the story, and it was like wow, it was like revolutionary. And Clint Eastwood has like 8-hour days, and people they just respect his work ethic. It's like one or two takes and we're done, moving on. It's like
Mm.
get it and then go and don't waste time. Like let's just figure it out and then shoot it, be done. And so, and Scorsese is just a mastercraft of how to make a movie. Actors, visually, everything. So
I mean, again, Clint is in his 90s and he's still going strong. He is still
yeah,
going strong. I saw pictures of him on set the other day, and I just thought, wow, that guy is obviously, he loves his work and he's going to do it right to the end. So, but let's talk about Roswell Delirium, because it was just such a captivating film. The 80s for me, I was born in 79. So the 80s for me, watching this movie, it was great. It was fantastic. But tell us a bit about the movie and where the inspiration came from.
The movie takes place kind of like an alternate world where basically the Cold War actually happens. The Soviets send over like 12 dozen nuclear warheads and attack the U.S. They felt a threat was happening, so they attacked first, and then everybody has to like deal with the aftermath and survival. And it tells a story of a mother and daughter who are just at the point of like watching Dallas, the opening sequence of the movie, so it's in the 80s, and here's all these things are happening, and then these warheads come and they try to survive, and then it like cuts to later in the future where everyone is back to normal sort of, but like they all have like radiation poisoning. They can't drink the water, their skin's deteriorating, all these things are happening. And eventually the little girl's on a ham radio and trying to like reach her father in space, but then gets all these like weird calls from other entities, and then leads her to kind of like going to Space Rock to find her friend, and then gets possibly abducted, and then gets full of radiation, and then her mother realizes that she can't save her because she's dying, and has to bring her back to this place called Space Rock to give the aliens in hopes that they'll save her. It's kind of a complex story. It starts off as nostalgia, and then it kind of goes into like the decay of this family, and then slowly it's this whole heartache, And I got the idea from the movie, or for the movie, about I say like 6 years ago. I was doing this documentary called Before I Die. It's about kids with cancer doing their bucket list. And there's one kid who had like beat cancer 9 times. He was this really strong, and the mother thought he was never going to die. And then one day they were doing this little thing on their bucket list, and the kid collapsed, and then took him to the hospital, and he died. And she tried everything she could to save him. And I thought, wow, this mother did everything in their powers to save her child, just stood with him through all the treatments. And I said, what would a grieving mother do? Would she bring them to the desert to give the aliens? Even though that's a crazy idea, but that's where it started. I'm like, this lady did everything to save her child. And I'm like, what would this grieving mother do? And that's how the whole idea started like 6 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, it is such a great watch. It really, really is. And you just had your premiere at the Culver City Film Festival. I think I've got a picture of that, which is just here. How was that experience, having your film, after all this hard work being shown to the masses, and what was the reception like?
Well, it was a crazy night. Like the day started off where like Dee Wallace calls me first thing in the morning, goes, "My dear, I'm so sorry. I can't make it. I'm sick." And I'm like, I was very upset. But I was like, well, the show goes on. We'll be obviously people will be upset, but thank you for telling me. And so I had that deal to deal with, and then all the excitement of the day. And then of course, like everyone shows up, and I mean, it is like the downstairs is packed with people. I'd say almost like 200 people are packed. And we were taking photos, and then of course like it's delayed because the movie before was having problems, so we had to wait, and so like everybody just rushed in, and of course we oversold like crazy, like everybody wanted to go see it, so we had to turn away almost 50 people. And
Wow.
I gave up my seat because the DP's father's wife was there, and I was like, well, look, you haven't seen it, you're with your son, you watch it. And then everybody else who couldn't go see it, I just took them out and helped them get refunded. And I said, well, the next time it shows, I'll buy your ticket. And so I never got to even see it. I missed the whole thing. I kind of walked in from, like 30 minutes in and watched part of it in the hallway. But, like I just remember hearing laughter, and people were like laughing at things I didn't think were funny. I was like, wow, I guess they like it, which is a good sign. And then, the last third act, they are like just all still and emotional. You can see people wiping their faces away with tears. And afterwards, like the room exploded with applause. I mean, it was just a great feeling, and just the energy was, I mean, everybody was like coming up to me, even the grips who worked on the movie, like, oh my God, I can't believe how good it was. And I'm like, I'm like, hang on, I'll get to you. Like, I'm trying to talk to everybody, but everybody was so happy and proud of it. They couldn't stop talking about it for days, and they would text me and call me. And, it's a good feeling to walk away from a movie that you spent so much time on and you worked on so hard, to have people be so proud of it, because a lot of times people go see a movie of theirs and then it's like, that was terrible. They don't even talk about it again. So it's
Mm.
like people want to see it again. They still keep talking about it, posting. So it's good to have that reception.
Which is great to hear because unfortunately in this industry you've got critics that I think, to
Oh,
be honest, they're out there just to slate movies. And just like the Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon, I think that people go out their way to say horrible things to raise their own profile because they've said horrible things. Do you know what I mean? And that's going to be
oh,
publicized. But you know what? I just thought this movie was so thought provoking and moving at times, funny at times, and gripping at times as well. Which is what you want from a movie. You know, you want to grab that attention for the whole time it's on, and not a moment. And I think the true test is, I watched it without looking at my phone once. So,
wow.
you know, like for a movie, you would look away or you would do something, or but I was glued to the screen. So, how different is it directing something that is also your baby because you wrote it? Do you prefer maybe to direct things that you haven't wrote yourself, or was it a great experience?
Well, I look forward to directing other people's projects. Like I direct some things, but not always movies. So I look forward to that challenge. Because for me, this film is very close to home, because I like, really the film was about mental illness, and I know a lot of people who are very mentally ill. So that's where I got a lot of the inspiration from as well. So it's very personal to me making the film, and I sometimes didn't want to be bothered with people's like thoughts and ideas. You have a lot
Mm.
of people who want to say and chime in, and that's why like there's this reference to Back to the Future, the movie where the girl's reading a book that says Spaceman from Pluto. It's very quick, but like that was the name one of the head people wanted to call the movie, and then Steven Spielberg shot it down. Oh, that's a funny joke, but like that was one of the big producers who wanted to name the movie Back to the Future to Spaceman from Pluto. And that's what you have to deal with a lot when you're making a movie. People are producers and they will have their ideas, and I felt like don't get in my way. Like, this is mine. You're not going to have any creative input. Let me just do it. And I feel like at the end, my vision stayed true, even though it did take a shift because in the edit, the movie became a whole different story. Like, I had to change a lot of things around. So.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask because obviously, while directing a film, you know, things do change. So, as being the writer as well, did you find that easier because you know the story inside and out, you know the characters, and how much did the movie change?
Well, I had like two editors working on it at first, and I would watch some of their cuts, and I'm like, where you're missing the performance. Like, where
Mm.
I remember this happening. I remember her looking this way and that, because it's all here. And they just weren't finding it. So I was like, I'm taking the movie over. I'm going to edit it myself because I don't like what you're doing. And I decided to really get into it. And the story kind of stayed the same as far as the timeline goes, but like a lot of the stuff was not on the script. Like these shots in space rock were not in the script as much, and the transitions, and then so we had to shoot a lot more pickups. So the editing and the like, so it's like we were done, but then we weren't done. We had to go shoot more stuff, and then I was like, well, the open sequence really isn't gripping enough. And we had initially this guy out who was a neighbor comes out of the house and blows his head off, and I was like, well, I don't think that's going to be enough to get Wendy and Mayday to leave the house and try to make a run for it. So we just decided to do some pickup shots, and then we had a visual effects guy do the rockets being launched across the screen, and so when I started to watch the edit, I saw the things that weren't working, and I'm like, well, we're going to go back and fix these things, and it really heightened the story. And then the story really got heightened with the sound effects and the music, which is done by Troy Van Leeuwen from the Queens of the Stone Age. He did an amazing job just keeping like the fun of the movie at times, and then sadness with the music. And the edit really changed from how I wrote it to like directing it in pieces. It just took on a whole new life, and it's and like for me, when I edit a scene, I just do it one by one. I don't like really put them all together until I'm like finished, you know. So like I
Mm.
cut every scene. I'll spend a whole day on one scene. That's it. I don't go into anything else. And then I'm like, all right, next day I'll go into that scene, you know. But then at the end, I'll just slowly put every little piece together and then see what's working, you know.
I mean, how difficult was it to get this movie made, from page to screen? Because, many filmmakers that I've spoken to, they talk about funding, they talk about loads of the logistics side. I mean, how difficult is it to get a movie made?
It is near impossible. It really is. Like I tell people, it's like I don't recommend anybody to make a movie because it is you have to have really thick skin to do it. You know, a lot of the movie was self-funded for myself, and then other producers put money into it, and then a couple of investors. You know, and you know, like when I was talking to some people who wanted like us to like sign with them for distribution, we were like, you know, they were talking about how the quality was and how the camera looks and the it's everything sound and you know we spent a little bit more money than we wanted to, but I was like, well, we had Steadicam, we had Jib, we had to have all the tools and make it look like a real movie, like a big studio production, and you know, like you know, we had the money and then we kind of got more money and the hardest part was like the casting. That was the hardest part of the film because we started casting in 2022 and we already had two people attached from my last short film that I did, Ari and Kylie. And I said, this is going to be your movie for both of you. And I'll just add everybody else. I'm like, I know what you can do. This is your movie. And I like knew a bunch of casting directors and they were still scared to leave the house. And I'm like, well, I cannot Zoom all these, you know, all these kids and adults. I need to be there in person. I need to see it happening. I need to adjust them. I need to work with them. And I don't feel the energy on a computer. Sorry. And I couldn't get any casting directors to come out of their house. They were all scared of COVID. And I'm like, well, I'm moving forward. And thank goodness for all the brave parents who brought their kids into the casting room. And you know, I brought myself and Ari and Kylie and her mom and some of my producers, and we cast everybody. And that was great. But then, like all these like '80s people came along, and you know, when you're an unknown director, nobody wants to work with you. Like nobody wants to be part of your project because they feel like it's going to be just a horrible experience. You're going to be, you know, difficult to work with. You know, very unsure of yourself, and that's not how I work. I'm been doing it for 20 years, so I know how to execute and make, you know, movies or TV shows, whatever. And I remember we got like Sam Jones first, you know, from our '80s wish list, and that was like a big relief because there was a lot of rejections. People didn't want to do it based on me. It's like, well, if you have a different director, we'll do it. And I was like William Macy wanted. Like he was considering the movie, but then when they found out that it was going to be me, they just passed. I was like, oh, okay, well that was too bad, but
Shocking.
yeah. And there were other people too like that. You know, we were talking like Aaron Paul and other people, and you know, we got Dee on board pretty quick. She read the script and fell in love with the character. I mean, she was just like, this is what I need. Here's, you know, and I'm like, we can make that happen. And she was next, and we got Lisa pretty quickly. Like her agent called me back in 20 minutes, and then we had a deal done the next day. It was so quick and just easy. And I'm like, wow, I wish they were all like this. And her agent also helped us get Reggie Bell Johnson, who, you know, hadn't really done much for a while. And then we got him in our movie. Then he started doing the Progressive commercials, you know, and so busy. And then last was Michael Hall. And, you know, I reached out to his manager, and, you know, his manager, like, I guess, like, called me by mistake because like the phone rang and he didn't leave a voicemail. So I called him back, and then we used to start talking. And then 2 days later, Michael and I are at the smokehouse having lunch, talking about the movie and making a, you know, a gentleman's handshake deal. So
That is
it was
awesome.
hard.
And
Yeah.
obviously Reginald that stars in one of the most well-known Christmas movies, of course,
Yes.
which is Die Hard, which without a doubt is one of my favorite Christmas movies.
Mine
But
too. Mine too.
oh, do you know, I haven't watched it this Christmas yet, and every year I always say I'm going to watch It's a Wonderful Life because I've never watched that, and then I'm going to
Okay.
watch Die Hard. So, but I've seen Die Hard. numerous times. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that, because literally you've just there covered three of my questions regarding the cast, because obviously Dee Wallace is, well known for E.T., and you've got Sam Jones, obviously Flash Gordon. So the cast is just phenomenal. But what really impressed me was the younger cast, because like Kylie and Ashton, and all the others, I haven't really seen them on screen that much, and I was quite shocked to witness the performance. And it's just a testament on how much talent is actually out there, and how this industry now is flooded with content, where it's
Mhm.
going to be harder for actors and performers to get their talent seen. And it's so
Sure.
frustrating, because literally the talent that you've got in the younger actors are just amazing. And it must be quite nice to think that they're in your movie, and come 15 years down the line, I am sure they're going to be on stage getting awards, and
Mhm.
everything like that. I mean, what made you choose like Kylie and Ashton? I mean, what was it about them that actually really stood out for you?
Well, Kylie was in my previous short film called The Rabbit Hole. And when she came into the casting room, she was like 8 years old and very nervous and just full of energy and bubbly like a kid should be, and very excited and hadn't done very much, a couple little small commercials or whatever. And I remember there's this moment where she's starts doing the scene and holding this little toy rabbit. And then she's like, "Can I start over again? I'm sorry." And I'm like, "Absolutely." And then she like just takes a moment and goes, and then delivers. Like she needed that second attempt, And I'm like, I don't know many actors who are adults that do that. They
Mm,
just mess up. Whatever, I'll do it again. But she just had to stop and just bring it back. And that just really impressed me. And it's like even during the movie, she was, goofing around. She was dancing, but then when the camera's ready to roll, she just brought it in and was very serious. And it's like, wow, this great work ethic, easy to work with, like takes notes so well. And when she was like 9 when we filmed that movie, and for me to like be able to just give her notes and her adjust without having to have an adult like explain it to her and break it down, like she just got it. And I'm like, most kids don't get it that early on. So it was just like, this is a raw talent. So I believed in her, and that's why I told her, I said, you have the next part in this movie. And Ashton was she was a wild card. She was not supposed to be in the movie. Like it was, we were gonna like get someone famous to be that role. Like that's our whole idea. Like here we're gonna like spend the money to get somebody like a Claire Holt or somebody and
mm,
be in that. Maybe maybe I don't know, somebody else. And it didn't happen because she came into the first audition, did great, and I'm like, it's almost there. It's like 80% there. She came back for the callback, and it was like her and one other girl. And I gave her a note before we started, and she took it and just like delivered this 6-minute monologue by herself, and like everybody didn't move. I had tears in my eyes, and I was like, "Oh my god! Like you are this character. You are Firefly." And I was shocked, and I said, "Well, I'm not going to have you do it again." I said, "Thank you for coming, and we'll be in touch." Let her go, and everybody goes, "Go back and give her the part right now." And I said, "I'm not going to do that." I said, "I'm going to make her wait 2 days, and then I'll give her the part." Because then her coming in and giving that amazing performance, I was like, now you changed everything on us. Now we got to find somebody else, to put the money for an 80 star or something, and I mean, she is just like incredible. I've never seen anybody deliver over and over again the way she does. As we shot the movie in 2 parts because of all the prosthetics that we had in the movie, we couldn't like really be in a desert and have it be 100 degrees out. So we had to wait till it cooled down to shoot that stuff. And so we took off like 3 months before we shot again from August. And she told me, she goes, "I'm worried about like finding the character again. It's been so long. I don't know if I can find her again." I'm like, "I think you can." And then the first take, she found her right away. And I mean, there's a moment that I remember where she like is giving her necklace back in the scene in the movie, and I won't spoil why. But we did 4 takes, and every take she would like grab it, a single tear would drop, and her lip would quiver, and it was just amazing. And like every take, she has such control. I mean, there's no one like her out there. So
And there's Hollywood actors out there that are getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars that struggle to do that, even a
mm-hmm.
fraction of that. So that's
Yeah,
what frustrates me, is that the fact that, this amount of talent, and you're right. I mean, her acting, it doesn't have to necessarily be the word, but it's the facial expressions, and it draws you in, which I think's beautiful about the art, that it's just fantastic. People need to watch this film. Definitely need to watch it. I mean, were there anything that you wanted to explore more if you had time? Is there any part of the film that you wanted to explore more?
well, I mean, real like it's funny because I talked to everybody, and like I got a lot of ideas from people in the casting room. When Ashton came in, I went home and I wrote for 6 hours afterwards. I changed a lot of the script, because she just gave me so many ideas. And, I really, after we did the movie, like there was things I wanted to do, like more with the idea of the radiation and more kind of like seeing more of these radiation people taking, people out of the house, the hazmat people bringing people out of the house. And the one scene that I never shot that I really always will regret, we just kind of ran out of like budget, but because in the whole movie they talk about Dallas, and like the cliffhanger who shot JR, because they never really find out, So I really wanted to get Bobby from Dallas and have a scene where the mom goes to buy ham radios, and then you hear on the radio, like who actually shot JR, So, but I never did that scene. But that was one that always bothers me. I wish I had it in there just for kind of like the nostalgia purpose, So,
Oh, I mean, I've got to say the '80s. I think you've hit the nail on the head, as they say. I mean, was there moments where you had to rein yourself in on the '80s references and things that you wanted to include within the film?
oh yeah, I mean, like there was stuff that we would just cut out, on there's a moment where like my dad plays a small character in the movie and he goes to buy an alien pie, from the restaurant, and she says something to him, the waitress does, and then he goes, "Yeah, I'll buy that for $1." It's a RoboCop reference, but like, well, maybe we should just kind of tone down a little bit because there's like 200 Easter eggs in the movie if you really pay attention. I mean, it starts off, I think, in the third or fourth shot where there's a '80s reference to a song on the ham radio. But even like I had to dial back some of the references quite a bit because I'm like, well, that's probably too much, and also like the tone as well, because I felt even on the day, like, a couple of the kids like Roman and Connor, or they're like the comic relief in the film, but I was like, well, now it's becoming too funny. Like it has to like be a certain tone. If it's too funny, it becomes like full on comedy, and this is not a comedy. So I had to like really just dial
Mm.
everything back a little bit, even in the edit, like where there's some really funny takes. But I'm like, it's just too funny. It's just got to be like a ha ha, but not like a really hysterical moment. So
I mean, I liked how obviously you take the audiences on this journey, but then you ground us as well in including certain things that actually happened in real life. So with the shuttle, and stuff like that. And I don't want to go too much into details because people will need to watch it to find out what we're talking about.
yeah,
But I'd quite like that because it brings you back to reality, I suppose, in the way that what we know. Do you know what I mean? Factual sort of
sure.
way, because obviously, with is it the Russians and obviously the missiles obviously never happened. So this is sort of, it's a great journey to go on. I've got to say, but the question is, when is this movie going to be out for audiences to watch on general release?
Well, the goal is probably, if like I'd say right after first quarter, so probably like April, May. We really like we've had a lot of people come at us to we can give this place a home. But I'm like, well, I just want to kind of wait a little bit longer because we didn't premiere the movie during the strike because I didn't feel like it was appropriate to have a movie release when everyone's out there fighting for a good contract.
Mm.
I'm like, and I was like, let's not burn the movie. Let's have everybody have their night. Let them have their pictures, talk about it. And I'm like, I just want to wait a little bit longer because we're kind of doing like a festival run as well. And those things can go on for a year, but I'm just going to run it through for a few months. And then, I'm talking to a distributor right now. And, end of January, we're going to start like kind of shopping it. And then I think by probably April, May, it'll have a home and definitely make a big announcement. But I feel like just want to get a little more energy up and excitement about it because it kind of like it started with a lot of traction. A lot of people were excited. It got like over like 1 million views with all the people who watched the trailer. And I just really would like to get the energy back up again. I really want, people are excited to see the movie and they keep hearing about it. So I just want to redraw that enthusiasm again. So.
I mean, people can follow the journey of the movie on your Instagram account. So by magic, by post editing, it will appear on screen right now for everyone to follow the journey of any news. So obviously, it's the holidays just around the corner. I want to know what you're doing for the holidays and your favorite Christmas movie.
Well, for the holidays, I'm actually going to Arizona to see my family, my aunt and my cousins. And I have one last job to do in Arizona before the year is over while I'm there. So we'll do a couple parties, and I know my aunt is part of like a movie group. So like some of them are actually in the movie as background actors, so they're going to be bugging me about when they get to see it, And I told them, I said, well, it's going to be playing in Chandler, Arizona next in January, so you can see it there at the festival. So we'll be doing that and celebrating. And my favorite Die Hard movie is pretty much your favorite your favorite movie for holidays. Die Hard, yes. I always say it is a Christmas movie. And when we had Reggie Johnson in the chair, one of my producers, Glenn Evans, asked him, is this a Christmas movie or an action movie? And he goes, Christmas. That's it. And he's like, I don't want to hear any more about it. And that is my favorite movie. I watched it like 100 times. I watch it every year. So that's one I look forward to seeing. So,
did anyone buy him any Twinkies when he was on set?
Oh, so you asked for about my directing style and everything. Well, I love like teasing people on set and giving them a hard time. Like I said, when it's appropriate. So I would play jokes on almost everybody. At least once. So we shot Reggie at the end of August, and it was like a hot day in Pasadena. So I told him, I said, you know what? We got all the takes, but I need one more wide shot. I'm sorry. If you don't mind, just like 2 minutes of this first scene, if we can do it again. He's like, really? I said, sure. I said, if you can handle him there, hang in there for a second, we'll love to have you just sit back down and we'll do this wide shot. So in the scene, he asked the mother to bring popsicles for him and Kylie. Well, I was like, I had a box of Twinkies on standby. So I basically had the mom go out to the kitchen and bring him and Kylie both a Twinkie, and he just saw that and didn't realize it at first, and then just broke into hysterical laughter. He couldn't stop laughing. And then Kylie's like, "Oh, Sergeant Al, what's in the Twinkie?" Like from Die Hard. So pretty funny.
And I can't believe you can still buy Twinkies because I thought Hostess went out of business, but you can still buy them here in the UK as well. And they're not the greatest things. I suppose when you're a kid, they're amazing, but they would last for many, many moons to come. So if there's any preppers out there, I would say stock up on your Twinkies because you're going to be all right in 100 years or so.
Yeah, they last like 7 years as far as we know. So, I haven't done the test yet, but.
But Richard, you've been a great guest. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Great movie. And I feel honored that I've actually seen it before some of the cast has. That starred in it, your family. So I feel very honoured, and it's a great movie, and I can't wait for everyone to see it. And I will make sure that I blow that trumpet throughout the year and help get that buzz for this movie out there because it needs to be seen. and it's just fantastic. But thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a great time. Thank you.